Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through ARPA, we spent 1.9 trillion, and I think 10% of that was aimed particularly at COVID relief. And I'm curious, with all the money that we've spent so far, and it still astounds me that we're nearly 30 trillion in debt, and we're looking to borrow more money and spend more, regardless of the merits. I think there's a lot here that obviously we do need to address, but not in the way that we've done it, amassing that much debt into the system. I'd like to focus in, have a question for Ms. Young. How much money is still out there in terms of your what you think it is, what it really is, that is unspent from what we've done already? And is that something that we should be looking at first before we actually tee up more money, especially when it comes to COVID relief items like masks and testing and so forth? What is your, I know the figure that I think has been given to the committee. I'd like to know what you think it is out there that's unspent funds that we could tap rather than, spending more money for things where we've got the funds sitting unused.
Senator, we've mostly used, and we provided that information to the committee at the request of you and several other senators. So I'm glad you have it. 97% of the funds pre-ARP have been obligated. As you mentioned, ARP was both direct COVID relief healthcare dollars. Most of that has been obligated or announced. That is what helped us get through Omicron variant. The money that is not obligated is something Senator Toomey talked about, state and local funding. That represents most of the non-obligated funding. So the healthcare pieces is mostly gone, given the response we've had to do for Omicron. The other side of the table are the economic state and local money, and that is the majority of the funding left from ARP.
And is it correct that if we focus on what the states have, that figure is close to $340 billion?
That sounds right, Senator.
And then, even though that's in the states' coffers, wouldn't it make sense that for those states that have unspent balances, that we would ask them to spend through that first before we would give them more money, or we do something federally that might duplicate it?
Well, Senator, the point of state and local funding was to ensure that they could, at the state and local level, respond to the pandemic. So I would certainly hate to see us do that and another variant come up. We've also, while Omicron is extremely contagious, I think we have gone through these variants with some level of success, and state and locals are utilizing these funds to also do mitigation efforts at their level. So we have to be careful about pulling money back and before we know what the future twists and turns of this virus brings.
Well, I think just for anybody in the public that's listening, back in 08, 09, I think the total that we spent when it was systemically something actually affecting the economy, not a healthcare crisis in terms of how we were going to remediate it, called for all this spending. I think we spent $800 to $900 billion. And of course, we've spent $4 trillion, another $2 with ARPA, and then a lot more requests for more. I guess in a short period of time, hundreds of billions has become passé. And the other thing the public needs to know is the Fed has pretty well accommodated all that by putting that debt on their balance sheet. I think that is largely, what is driving now what is not transitory, but is somewhat of a stubborn inflation rate, 7 to 8%. One other question. In the December 2020, Congress passed the Consolidated Appropriations Act with overwhelming bipartisan support. The legislation included $1.375 billion for the construction of border barriers. On the first day in office, President Biden signed a presidential proclamation to pause construction and funding for the border barrier. Despite a continuing resolution, there is still an authorization and appropriation to build out that barrier. What will it take for the administration to follow the law, and are there other issues where the administration plans to ignore Congress?
Senator, I take the Empowerment and Control Act as serious as anybody in this room. That is why GAO has found that this administration has acted properly within the confounds of that law and that we are obligating prudently. It may not be on what everyone thinks it should be, but we have environmental remediation to be done. We have gaps to be filled. We have returned billions of dollars to the Department of Defense where it belongs. So we are doing what we not only believe is responsible, but GAO has validated that.
So do you intend to spend the $1.4 billion
We are spending it
on a border barrier?
On utilize efforts. You can only spend it on certain things. We can't even spend it on technology.
That's what we authorized.
Yeah, so we are spending on what we are authorized to spend it on, and GAO has validated that.
Okay, thank you, Senator Braun.